Hello, everyone. All right, so let's get started. Okay, so just in case you're just starting, so if you just started up Pico 8, this is what you'll see. And what we'll do is we'll type load light bikes and then hit enter. And that should load your game. So everybody do that. Make sure you get it loaded. And then once you're done with that, hit the escape key up in the upper left of your keyboard so you can go into your code. So it should look like this. And everybody can hear me okay? Okay, great. Okay, so where we left off yesterday, let's just take a look at what we've got. We've got a game where we have walls and we have players that can move around, but we don't really have a way for any players to lose or win or tie. And that's what we're going to do today. So it actually turns into a real game. So I'm going to hit escape and then escape again. So let's take a look at what we need to do now. So we have the player moving, but we don't have a way of telling if the player hits something. By the way, also I wanted to find out, Noah, did you get yours working so that you can move both players around just fine? Just want to make sure that that got solved. If not, I'll help you solve it later today. But okay, great. Good to hear. Okay, so what we want to add now is we want to add a way for the players to check to see if they hit something. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a whole new code tab over here. I'm going to hit the plus symbol up here. And so if you're just joining, we haven't done anything yet. All we did was just look at what we made yesterday and test it and make sure. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make a new code tab where we can add the code to see if the players hit anything. So we're going to make new code tab here, and then we can call this, we'll call it dash dash check if hit. I don't know. That's whatever you want to call it. That's what I'm going to call mine. All right. So then we're going to make a function called check underscore hit, parenthesis, parenthesis. And then don't forget to put your end. Okay. Now what this function is going to do is it's just going to check to see if the player hits anything. So remember, use an underscore, shift dash to make sure that it looks like two words, but it really is one word. And the first thing we're going to need to do is we need to see what is the next spot that we're about to draw the player on. And so what we need to do is when we're running, I'm going to start the game here. Okay, so let's say this is what we're at. We need to check, it's going to move the player one more space forward. So we need to see, is that space already taken? Like, in other words, is it not black, but it's some other color? Like if it's taken up by the wall or the other player. So we need to, if you remember, we used pset to set the color of a pixel on the screen. But we now need to get the color of a pixel on the screen. We need to look at where the player will be and see, is that spot already colored with something? Because if it is, that means we just hit something. If it's not, that means we can go ahead and the player can keep going. So what we need is we're going to call this P1 next. And this is going to be the next spot that the player will show up. And it's going to be the color of the pixel where the player is going to move to next. So we're going to say P_1 next, P get, instead of P set, make sure it's P get, parenthesis, parenthesis. Now P get only takes two pieces of information. It wants to know the X and the Y. And it wants to know how far over and how far down. And then it'll look at that spot and it will give back the number of the color in that spot. And so we're going to take that number that it gives back and we're going to store it in P1 next. That's why we have this equal sign here. So we're going to say, go get the color of where the player is, or where the player is going to be, and put it in this variable called P1 next. So we're going to say, okay, P1X, P1Y. So this is where the player is going to be. Because remember, these are the numbers we're using to store where the player's X and Y coordinates. So we're going to say, go look at that spot and tell me what color is at that spot and store that color number in here. Now we need to see, is that color anything but 0, right? And if you remember, all the colors have numbers. So this is color 0, color 1, color 2, color 3, color 4. So we don't care what color it is. We just want it to not be 0. So all we have to do is see, is the color of that pixel more than 0? Because if it's more than 0, it's one of these colors. So all we have to see is check the color we got and see, is that more than 0? So let's do that. So we're going to say if P1 next, remember that's storing the color, is more than 0, then, and we're going to say end here. We have to make sure we have ends. So this is really important to make sure that you have the end for this if, because this end is for the function. And that's also why we space things in so that you can kind of tell those apart. So you can tell that, oh, this end is for this function. This end is for this if. Okay, so then we're going to say if the color of where they're going is more than 0, then we're going to set P1 hit equals true. Remember that variable we set when we made the player? We made a variable called P1 hit to tell if the player had hit anything. So in this case, we're saying if where you're trying to go has any color other than 0, then you hit something. So we're going to set P1 hit to true. So that's how we know, did player 1 hit anything? And then we're just going to do the same thing for player 2. So we're going to say P2 underscore next equals Pget. And then we're going to say P2x, oops, I'm moving my mouse, P2y. Okay, so this is going to go find out what color is at the spot that the player 2 is going to be in and store that color number here. And then we're going to say if P2 next is greater than 0, oops, I said x, next, P2 next is greater than 0, then, and we're going to put the end, it's always good to make sure, we're going to say P2 hit equals true. So this checks to see if player 1 hit something, because it checks to see if the color is more than 0. And this checks to see if player 2 hit something, and if that color where they're going is more than 0. So now we know, did they hit something? So now we need to actually figure out what to do with that information. So what we're going to do is, okay, so here's one thing we have to think about is, well, actually, let's just go forward with this and let's just, and then we're going to add one more thing after this, because this will just tell if player 1 hits, this will tell if player 2 hits. Now, if that happens, the game should be over, but we don't really have anything to track right now. We don't have a variable to track whether the game is over. So we're going to go back to tab 0 here. This is tab 0. And we're going to, after make players, we're going to add a variable called game underscore over, and we're going to set it to false because this is the init. This is the beginning of the game. And at the beginning of the game is not over, right? The game over equals false. So let's make sure you add that to make, after make player, put game underscore over equals false. I'll give you a chance to type that in. So this variable will track, is the game over or not? And right now it's going to be false because the game is not over, the game just started. So if you've got that in there, now we're going to go back to our check if hit tab. So now we check to see if player 1 hit anything, and we check to see if player 2 hit anything. And now if player 1 hit something or player 2 hit something, then game underscore over equals true. Don't forget your end for this if. So I want to make sure everybody gets all this code in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a screenshot of this so that you can make sure that you have all of this code. Oops, you know what? I need to load something up here so that I can put screenshots on the screen. Give me 1 second. Just going to give everybody a chance to type all that in while I fix this. Okay, let's just see here. Can I do this? Okay, good. Just checking. Okay. Now I'm going to put this screenshot on the screen. There we go. We'll put it way up here. Okay. Now let's get back to our code. All right. So now we've checked to see if player 1 hits anything. We checked to see if player 2 hits anything. And if player 1 hits something or player 2 hits something, then we say game over equals true. Great. That's what we want. However, we want the game to stop if that happens. So let's go back to code tab 0. And in our update function, what we're going to do is we're going to say, we're going to add some code. If, parenthesis, parenthesis, and then inside the parentheses, we're going to say if not game over, okay, then, and then this is, and now we're going to space this in, okay, and so now what this does is this says, if the game is not over, then move the players. In other words, as long as the game is running, move the players. But after we move the players, we need to run our check hit function. So what that's going to do is that's going to move the players and then check to see if they hit anything. And then if they hit something, great. Well, not great, but you get the idea. But this way, they'll only move the players if the game is not over. So once they hit something and the game is over, this stuff will stop happening. We'll stop moving the players and stop checking if they hit once the game is over. Okay, so what I want to do is let's save this right now. So right now, nothing special is going to happen. It's just the game is going to stop running as soon as we run it. So if you hit Control S or Command S, make sure you save, and then hit Control R or Command R on a Mac. And notice the game just stopped running as soon as red hit blue. So let's try that again. Let's see if blue can hit itself. Yep, blue can hit itself. Game stops running. Let's try if we can hit this wall. Yep, so now we can hit walls too. Oh, you can even hit yourself, and that's good because you shouldn't be able to drive over yourself. Boom. All right, so hitting the map works, hitting each other works, and hitting yourself works. So that's good. That means it all is functioning. So if your game is working as you should expect, raise your hand because I want to make sure everybody's following along here. So go ahead and click raise your hand if your game is working how it should. If it's not working how it should, please tell me what's up in the chat so that I can see. Okay, so we have a couple people with some things to fix. Okay, so some people said that their game stops immediately. So if that's happening, there's a couple things to fix. And Elijah and Julian, I see that you have some things to fix. We'll get to that too. So if we hit escape and escape again to go back here. So Milo, you said your game stops immediately. One thing to make sure of is make sure check hit comes after move players. And Adira, you said the picture won't show? Okay, let's figure that out too. Okay, so Milo, so check hit is after move players. Okay, and then now when you run it, it still stops immediately. Okay, so make sure that your game over variables are named correctly. Game underscore over equals false. And then make sure this says if not game over, then do this. And then the other thing is in your check hit function, make sure that you have P1 hit or P2 hit. And then game underscore over equals true. Okay, Elijah, we'll help you out in just a second. So if your program gets an error, that it usually will tell you where the error is. And so like, for instance, if I leave a parenthesis off here and I run it, see how I get an error? Okay, so what you should pay attention to with that error is see where it says the error is. It says line 3, tab 2. And if I hit escape, usually it will put my cursor on the line that it thinks that the error is at. So Elijah, when you try to run it, what does it say? What's the error that it says? And where does it says? It's where we check the color for P2. Okay, so make sure that this is pget, P-G-E-T, parenthesis, P2x, comma, P2y, end parenthesis. And then make sure this is P2 underscore next, and make sure that that's written exactly the same here. If P2 underscore next is greater than 0. Just make sure all the letters are correct. Make sure you have the underscore. Make sure it's most important that make sure that this is the same as this. And this should be green if it's not green. Oh, good. Okay, so you got that solved. So now try to run it and see if you get any other errors. It's really common. By the way, I just want everybody to know as you're doing this, it's really common to write code, run it, and have there be an error. That's not unusual, and try not to get frustrated. I know it can feel frustrating, but it can, it's just kind of normal that that happens. Okay, Alan, you want to go back to tab 0? Okay, so now yours won't move. Okay, let's figure that out. So if yours is not moving, a couple things to make sure of. One, make sure it's game underscore over at the beginning, and set it to false. False should be blue. And then if make sure you say not game underscore over, then move players, and check hit after move players. So that's important that those two happen in that order. So game underscore over should equal false, and if not game underscore over. And really check to make sure that these are being typed correctly, because even like one letter difference can make it not work. And Alan, did you get what you needed from tab 0? I'm going to take a screenshot of tab 0 so that you can have it up on the screen. 1 second here. So this is what tab 0 should look like. Okay, so nothing should have been changed in this code in tab 1. So tab 1 should be the same. Now in this code, we really need to make sure that everything's named correctly. So p1 underscore next equals pget p1x comma p1y. And it's really important you name these correctly because they should be the same as these names up here. P1x, P1y, P2x, P2y. It's really important those are the same. So pget P1x, P1y. And then if P1 next, and this has to be the same here. This has to be the same as this. Greater than 0. And then make sure it says P1 hit equals true. Okay. And then same thing for P2 next. P2 underscore next. And then pget and make sure it's P2x and P2y. And then when it says if P2 next is greater than 0, then make sure that these are the same, P2 next and P2 next. And then P1 hit. Now P1 hit does not have an underscore, so there should be no underscore there. So it should be P1 underscore or P1 hit, no underscore. Remember, that's the same as this one here, P1 hit and P2 hit. So P1 hit should equal true and P2 hit should equal true. And then if P1 hit or P2 hit, then game underscore over equals true. So really just check to make sure everything is exactly how it should be there. Remember, one letter off can sometimes make it a problem. And so now when you run it, oops, I forgot to add my parenthesis back in there. So when you run it, do they move at all? Do they just go like, you know, head towards each other, or what happens? So when you run it, they just don't move, period? Boy, that is weird. Okay, so here's what I want you to try. If they move for like 1 millisecond, okay, so in other words, like they move like one dot and then they just stop. Okay, so if that's the case, then just trying to think what would cause that. So Milo, Adira, when you press Control, it doesn't show the game. Does it give you like an error? Does it tell you like, oh, something wrong on like line 5, tab 0? Does it show you something like that? Okay, just does it give you just a blank black screen and nothing else? Okay, so if that's happening, make sure you have the draw players function in here, in the draw function. If you don't have draw players, it's not going to draw anything, not going to draw players to the screen, and make sure you have the map function in there too. Also make sure it says underscore draw, not like just draw, like it has to be underscore draw. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. We're going to go ahead and your red dot is not there anymore. Alan, yours says error line 3 tab 0. That usually means something's wrong on one of your lines up here, line 3, tab 0 is, oh, so Alan, make sure you have the underscore here. It's make underscore players. Underscore is the shift dash key. There shouldn't be a space here. It should be make underscore players. And make sure it says players, not player. So it should be the same as what you have over here on tab 1. Oh, okay, good. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. I do wanna show what the rest of it is that we're gonna do, but I also wanna make sure everybody gets their game fixed. However, I wanna make sure we have enough time to do everything. So, Milo, I'm not sure why yours is doing that. That's really weird. If you wanna copy and paste everything from your tab 0 into an answer, that would be fine with me. I could take a look and just see if there's anything in there I can see that might be wrong. So the way you copy and paste everything is select all of it and then hit Control C. Control C, make sure you don't hit Control X, hit Control C, and then Control V. Okay, let me just look over your code real quick. Okay, now Milo, can you copy and paste your tab 2? Sorry, I'm just looking over some code here to see. Alan, that error usually means you've forgotten an end. Like maybe you have an if, but you don't have the end for it. Or you have a function, but you don't have the end for the function. Usually it means you're missing an end somewhere where you should have an end. So make sure you have an end for each if, and make sure that the end is there for the function as well. That's why we can space stuff in to make it a little easier to see. Okay, all right, Milo, can you paste in code tab 1 now? That looks correct. I'm not seeing anything right off the bat that looks like it's a problem. Hold on, let me just look up at the other code real quick. Line 4, tab 2, that looks like probably this line, Alan. So make sure it's P1 underscore next, and then pget has P1x comma P1y. Well, Milo, how about this? I'm gonna answer your code with the code from my screen and just replace your tab 2 and see if that works. So let's just see. Oh, okay, you had I instead of 1. Okay, good. All right. So anyone else still having a problem? If you are having a problem, raise your hand. And Julian, oh, you want my tab 1? Okay, here we go. That's my tab 1. Tell me if you need me to scroll down. And Adira, what's the problem you're still having? I just want to make sure we get that fixed. Like yours, you just don't see anything? You have 2 errors. What's the first error? There you go. Adira, what's the first one? All right, so Milo, I'm gonna copy and paste in my tab 0 for a second. Hold on. 1 second, Alan. All right. There you go. All right, Milo, I'm gonna paste in my tab 0 for you. Julian, you're good? Do you need me to scroll down? Game over equals false. Okay, so the keys to run the red are ESDF. E for up, S for left, D for down, F for right. Adira, what does it say about that? What when it says like line 4, tab 2, like what is the place it says that the error is at? Okay, Milo, I'm gonna paste in my tab 1 and if that still doesn't work, I don't know what. Okay, line 4, tab 0. So that is, sorry, Alan, or Julian, I'm gonna have to switch for a second here. I'm gonna switch for just 1 second. So that's this line. So line 4, tab 0. So that should be this line. So make sure you have parentheses at the end of make players. So make sure you have that. Also make sure you have an end after this for function. And make sure you have an underscore in game over. And then make sure false is blue. So Milo, it looks like there was something amiss in your player movement code. I'm not sure what, but there was definitely something in there that was not working the way it should have. And I'm not sure why, but oh, Milo, I see what the problem was. For player 1's direction, instead of P1D equals 0 in the make players function, you had PID equals 0. And that is the only thing I can see that was wrong. Need to see tab 1. Alrighty. Adira, were you able to find anything wrong on that line? So here's what I think we're going to do, because I want to make sure we get through so you can actually see all the things that we want to do. On tab 1, where do you control red? That's this here. You have to make sure you have comma 1 after these button numbers. The error said end. Okay, so Adira, that usually means that there's something missing. Like if you have an if here, there's no end here, or a problem like that. Like make sure anytime you have an if, there's an end that matches with it. And anytime you have a function, there's an end that matches with it. And that is usually the problem. Julian, yes, if you want to copy and paste your code, I'd be happy to take a look. So here's what I want to do though, is I just want to go through what we're going to need from here to the end of the game, just so you have the full game. And then if you're still having problems, yes, I will screenshot tab 1. It's a long screen, so I'm just going to try to break it up into 2 posts here. Hold on one sec. But here's the thing. I want to get through just what we need to see for the rest of the game so that we don't lose that. And you can actually still see it. But don't forget that I will make a video of everything we're covering so that you can, let's see, this is just a bit longer than 2 screens. So I'm sorry about that. 1 second here. So I'm just going to go through the rest of this, and then here's what we're going to do. If you're still having trouble, I want you to send me an email, and then I will be happy to do like a Zoom call, and we can just do one-on-one, and we'll probably be able to solve it like really fast. So if you send me an email after this, I will set up a Zoom call where we can just keep going. And that way, because I do want to get through the rest of this, but I also want to make sure everybody gets their thing fixed. So if you're able to do a Zoom call right after this, I will help you out directly. Otherwise, we'll just do it over email. I'm just going to look at Julian's code really fast and see if I can see anything really quick that is wrong. If I can't see anything, we do have to kind of go on here. I don't see anything in your tab 2. Tab 1 seems to look fine. That everything you showed looks fine off the top of my head, but it may be something like really small that is just messing up. So I think we're just gonna have to do a Zoom call afterward, and we'll get it solved really fast. It won't take that long at all. We'll be able to sort it out pretty quick. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna fix the rest of our check hit, because I wanna show you something. Is when we run this, notice, okay, so it says, okay, they crashed, but you see how they kind of like go through each other. It can't tell when they crash into each other, okay? So when they crash into each other, we want them both to lose, because it should be a tie if they crash into each other. So we're gonna add one extra thing on tab 2 after we check if player 1 hits something, and after we check if player 2 hits something. What we're gonna do is we're gonna add one more that just says, if player 1's X is the same as player 2's X, so equals equals, remember equals equals. Oh, also don't forget your end parenthesis. If player 1 x equals player 2x and player 1y equals player 2y. So what this means is player 1 at the same spot as player 2? In other words, are they on the same spot? Well, that means then that they crash into each other because they're at the same spot. So if that's the case, then we say then end. Then we're going to say, if that's the case, we're going to say P1 hit equals true. And we're also going to say P2 hit equals true. That way, no question, they'll both have hit something. If they're in the same spot, they should both be true. P1 hit and P2 hit. Okay. Now when we run it, you can see as soon as they meet, they're just like, boop. It's like, okay, it stops. Okay. So this will make sure that we can tell if it's a tie. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add a sound if they hit each other. So yes, Mila, to answer your question, we are going to make a noise. So we're going to go to the sound tab. That's up this over here. I'm going to leave this on the screen. I'm going to screenshot this so that you know what it says and you don't lose it. And let's get rid of these. There we go. Okay, we're going to put that over here. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to make a sound in here in the sound editor. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this one. This is like the staticky noise. And we're going to click this twice. So it's like boop, boop. It should be number 3. And we're going to draw like this. And then we are going to take the volume and do the same thing and make go do. Okay. And if you see, it kind of just, makes this sound all the way across. There we go. Now watch. If we play it, and let's make it a little faster. Let's go to 2, like. You see how that's like a crash noise? So we take the pink instrument, make it go do-do-do-do-do-do, and then we take the volume and go do-do-do-do-do-do-do. And then if we set it to speed 2, you could even do speed 1, but it's a little fast, so I kind of like speed 2. And now remember, this is sound 0, okay? So in order to play this, what we do is we say, if P1 hit or P2 hit, meaning like if someone crashed, then let's set game over to true, and then let's play sound effect 0. And so if I save this, Control S or Command S, and then Control R or Command R, you see, when they hit something, they make a noise. That's exactly what we want. Okay. Now, we want to draw who won, because that's important to know who won. So we want to make a function to draw who the winner is. So I'm going to add another function down here. And don't forget, remember, I'm going to be making a video with all the things that we covered today. So function draw underscore winner, parenthesis, parenthesis. And I'm going to go through this a little quick, and I apologize, but I just want to make sure we get through everything before the end of the class. And then the video you get will also go through all of this too, just so that you can follow along with it. So if P1 hit and P2 hit, so first we're going to see, was it a tie? If it was a tie, then, and we have to put our end, then print tie, quote, tie, end quote. And then we're going to say at 56 pixels over, so 56 dots over and 11 dots down, so a little bit down from the screen. We're going to make it in white. So now let's just test this. Well, yeah, let's test this. Let's see. So we're going to save it. And then we're going to go back to tab 0. And we're going to say, if game over, then draw winner. So this will only happen if the game is over. So normally when the game is playing, this is not going to happen. Only when the game is over will this happen. So let's just save it and run it. Let's just see. Okay, good. So it says, hey, it's a tie. That's good. So now we need to go back to our draw winner. And now we're going to check to see, okay, let's say it wasn't a tie. Let's say P1 hit and P2 hit aren't, let's just say only one of them hit. Not both, just only one of them. Then we're going to say else if, that just checks another thing. If P1 hit, so in other words, okay, not both of them hit, just one of them. If just one of them hit, then we're going to print, because if P1 hit, that means player 2 won. So we're going to say player 2 wins. And we're going to put that at 36 pixels over, 11 pixels down, and we'll make it color 7. Okay, so now let's just see if player 1 hits something. Yep, okay, it says player 2 wins. So if player 1 hits something, it does say player 2 wins. Good. So now let's do another else if. And this time, if player 2 hits, then print player 1 wins. Because if player 2 hits something, then player 1. And then we can just say the same position with the same color. And now we can test and see player 1 wins. So now we have player 2 wins. Oops. Player 1 wins. And then if they both hit each other, it's a tie. Okay, so that's good. But we don't really have a way for them to start the game over if they run into something. So we're going to add that to the end. So after we check to see who won and we print who won, then at the very bottom, we're going to print press, and then a shift X will make this glyph. Press X to play again. And we're going to put this at 18, 112, 7. So that's going to be 18 pixels over, 112 pixels down, and color 7. And then we have make sure you have your end parenthesis. So this, after we pick who wins and tell the players who won, then we're going to say press X to play again. But here's the problem. We're saying that, but if I press X, nothing happens. So we need to actually make something happen if someone presses X. So we run it, crash, but X doesn't do anything. So let's add that. And the way we do that is we go to tab 0 and see how we say, if the game is not over, then do this stuff. But if the game was over, we want to be able to press X and have it start over. So what we're going to do is we're going to add into our if, we're going to add else. So if the game's not over, do this. But if it is, then we should say if button P, now button P stands for button press, button P shift X, then init. Now remember, init starts our game. So if we run init, then it kind of restarts the whole game. So we're going to say if the game is not over, do this, but if it is over, else, then check to see if they press the X button. If they press the X button, restart the game. So now let's see what happens. So we'll save it, Control S or Command S, and run it. And now if we press X, because now the game's over, so now it actually is listening to see, do they press X? And if we press it, it restarts. Now notice if I press X while the game's running, nothing happens, because the game's not over. So it doesn't even listen for a button press. But if the game is over, now it says, oh, if they press X, restart. Now we've got most of a game here. The only other thing that I would say we should add is maybe a little graphic to show who lost, like where the crash happened. And so I'm going to show you that real quick. And don't worry if you're not able to follow along. That's okay. You can follow along in the video that I send afterward. And then do each of those steps, and we'll make sure. The other thing is, before we end off, I just want to find out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send an email to everyone who attended, where if you need help, I'll send you a Zoom link, and then you can just join that Zoom call. and then we'll get you some help. So if you do need some help fixing your game, just look for that email that will come right after this is over. So we have just a few minutes left, so we're going to add this one last thing. So I'm going to go to my Sprite Editor, and I'm going to make a like a little crash thing here. Maybe I'll make this a little bigger. Let's see, how do I want to make this? Let's see. And then let's make that, like this, and then this. That's pretty good. Let's get rid of some of this. There we go, around the edge here. That's like a crash. Okay, good. So now, this, we're gonna put this over whoever crashed. So here's how we're gonna do this. So this is Sprite 18. So what we're gonna do is we're going to back down to our draw winner function. So if player 1 and player 2 hit, they might not hit the same, they might not hit each other. They might have both crashed into walls. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, if player 1 and player 2 hit, we're going to say, draw a sprite number 18, that's the one I just made, at player 1's x minus 3. Now the reason we say minus 3 is because the center of where we draw the sprite is usually up here. But because the center of this crash is here, we're going to go 1, 2, 3. So we're going to move this almost like this up to where the player is actually at. So we need to say player 1x minus 3, player 1y minus 3. And then we're going to duplicate this, Control D. And now we're going to say also draw it at player 2's location. So we're going to draw the crash at player 1 and player 2. Now if player 1 hit, then we also need to draw the crash at player 1's spot. And if player 2 hit, then we need to draw the crash at player 2's spot. So now it will draw a crash symbol or crash icon at the spot of whoever hit. So if both of them hit, it will draw a crash at both of them. If one of them hit, then it will draw a crash at that one. Okay, so now we're going to save this and run it. Now, okay, look at that. Now we have a little crash. It actually matches the sound that gets made. Yep, so even if you run into yourself. All right, good. So we have a working game. And notice they both crash at the same time, even though they crash in different places. So that worked. That's good. That's exactly what we wanted. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going, if you need help, please raise your hand, because I just want to get an idea of how many people need help. Okay. Adira, did you need help as well? All right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to send everybody a Zoom link, and I will be available for the next hour on that Zoom link. And I will just help you all one by one by one. We'll just get through everything. And I think that we'll be, if I can see your Pico 8, that will make it really easy. And I think we'll be able to solve the problems like super fast. I've done this in the past with other classes, and usually the problems just solve really quick. And then you'll still get a video later today with all the steps of what we did today, all the way up to here, including the very end of it, where we actually add the crashes and the noises and all that kind of stuff. So even if you didn't need help, but we just did the last part a little too fast, that's okay. You'll still get a video. And then you can always go back to that video even after the class and watch it again and follow through the steps if you want to. And again, I am always happy to have you email me if you'd like. My email address is this. And if you have any questions about game development, even after the class is over, you're always welcome to email me, and I will be happy to answer any questions. Anyway, this was a fun game to make, and I'm glad you all were able to join me. So I will send you all a Zoom link for anybody who needs help, or if you just have questions. And so some of you I will see in just a minute. And the rest of you, thank you for joining. Keep an eye out for the email with the rest of the instructions. And then we will, if I see you in one of my future classes, that will be good. I'm running a class on some computer basics next week, and I think that'll be a lot of fun. And then I believe we're doing this game development class again, not next week, but I think we're doing it the week after. So we'll be doing another one of these classes with a different type of game. Okay, great to see all of you, and thank you for joining. Watch for that email on getting the Zoom link to get help, and I will talk to you all later. You're welcome, Ellen. Okay, I'll see some of you soon.